Hoo-ah! Welcome back to the Combo Couch, everyone. Pastor Jardula here. You might notice that I am by myself right now, that Fiorella is not up with me. A quick announcement. You will not be seeing her at all this week. She is on assignment with 4RT. I just announced it in the morning show. She's on her way to the Donbass. So we will hear back from Fiorella next week, back Monday on Monday's show, and we'll get to hear about her whole experience. This is something she's been wanting to do. So she's doing it, and we can just pray for her safety and hope that she comes back with a life-changing experience and gets to report what's going on over there, because I think it's important that people go there. She's walking the walk, ladies and gentlemen. So big ups to Fiorella. She is the bomb, and we can't wait to hear back from her. So with that being said, she hit me up the other day, says, "Hey, fam, can you handle the week? Can you get some guests in there? Can you get some co-hosts?" And I said, sure. I had a list of some people that I wanted to bring on as a co-host. So today, you know the Combo Couch, how we do it. Sometimes we bring on somebody who might just have a good Twitter following or a small show, somebody who's, a little bit newer to the process than we were when we started 5 years ago. And we've been very fortunate. Guys who have bigger platforms, people like Jimmy Dore, people like Kim Iverson have taken us on to their shows and helped us out and helped us get our information out there. And they've also, as friends, have always complimented and told us how important they think our work is. And that's always a great thing to have them as friends. But to have the opportunity to go on their platform is something special. But we've done the same thing, too. We try to pay it forward. Some people who have a voice, have a great voice that we catch our eye or catch our ear, whatever you want to say. Maybe we give them a shot. Nicholas, MMA socialist. Started RBN after we had him on the election show. We were eyeing him for quite some time. He was doing a little video. We said, hey, come on our show. Check it on out. Now he's doing his thing. Not to say that it's us who gave him his credit, as we just did our due diligence to make sure that we give those people the same opportunity that we were given. Richard Medhurst. He was Poppy Chuliman, one of the first shows to come on and talk about Sirius. So guys who I thought were next in line definitely caught our ear. I've been doing some good work out there. If you haven't heard of them, you're going to hear about them now. Today, we got Keaton and Russell from Dissidence joining us today. What's up, boys?
What's up, Craig? Thank you so much for having us.
What up? Thanks for bringing us on.
No doubt, man. Like I said, some people gave us the opportunity to go on their show. Likewise, over here, wanted to get you guys on here, hear about your story, what's going on. Where did you guys meet? And how long have you guys been doing this? And then also, too, what inspired you guys to do this? Go ahead, buddy.
Well, Russell and I have actually only met in person once. We actually met one time for coffee in the city about 2 years into having started this project. So I know Russell as an internet buddy mostly, but I started the project back in March of 2019 as just an audio podcast. And then right after the audio podcast, I sort of created a blog. I just bought a domain because I was afraid that if anybody ever started paying attention to us, which I knew was a long shot, that someone might buy a domain and try to sell it to us for a very expensive price. So I bought a domain and just started writing some blog posts. Russell and I have known each other since 2016. A sort of Hillbot mutual friend of ours, started posting obnoxiously on his wall during that 2016 primary, and I would pick a fight with him, and then Russell would just chime in. And so we spent a lot of time just double teaming this same friend of ours, and we noticed we would like each other's comments and respond and add to each other's points. So then I friended Russell on Facebook a few months after that, and then once I started this project up, I noticed Russ would write these sort of extended Facebook posts just on the goings-on of the day. And I said, this guy's a really good writer. So I invited him to submit some articles to the site.
You found that he was a good writer through his shit talking on Twitter? Or?
Yeah. No, well, it wasn't Twitter. It was Facebook.
I do very elevated shit posts.
Well, we started on Facebook, the shit libs over there, too, as well. So please continue. But I like the way this is going, because I saw the same thing in Fiorella. When I asked her to help me out, I'm like, yo, there's a black woman who's kind of attacking me and from the progressive side, and I didn't know how to handle it. And I'm like, that's when I was hanging with the lefties, and I'm like, I don't want to get canceled here. Can you help me out? And she helped me out, framing it in a good way. But please continue, Keaton, about the story, the way you found true love in Russell.
Yeah, right. So
I love this.
Exactly. No, this wouldn't have happened on Twitter because his shit posts had to be, they were longer. They were more substantive shit posts, right? More than 140 characters each, right? And so I said, these are pretty good shit posts. Why don't you write some shit posts for me, and I'll call them articles? When you have a website, a shit post is not a shit post. A shit post is an article when you have a domain for $8 a month, right? So he sent me some stuff. I published it, and then, I just had him on the podcast to talk about the articles. And before we knew it, we had pretty much become a team. We started doing episodes, pretty much on a weekly basis back then. And then, we started getting into YouTube about a year ago once we found out that as much as we were reluctant to get into YouTube, because YouTube is a much more censorious place than a podcast feed, right? The reason I did it as an audio show is because on a podcast, you could say whatever the hell you want. It's almost impossible to cancel an audio show because it's just an RSS feed. I was reluctant to get into YouTube precisely because of all the headaches it would come with. But we realized after a few years of sort of toiling and, building up an audience as a podcast, but not a very big one, the real audience was here on YouTube. And so we came here and we've been growing this YouTube channel out for about the last year.
And on Rockfin too as well now, making sure you're...
Rockfin and Rumble too, yeah, exactly.
Securities in there. You got to hedge your bets. If they take away your fiat, you got to go to your crypto. Russell, where are you from originally? you guys reside in Brooklyn, right? BK?
No. Keaton used to.
I lived in Brooklyn for a while. I'm up in the Hudson Valley now, and Russell's in Harlem.
Harlem.
I'm from Flushing though.
Flushing? You're a Mets fan like me.
I always say the reason I have zero interest in sports is because I grew up a mile from Shea Stadium, and it gave me the impression from childhood that sports were a Sisyphean dilemma where you just constantly tried to pull a boulder up the hill that would always roll down on you, and you'd just be disappointed and have no control over the outcome.
Yeah, but it keeps people occupied, Russell. Bread and circuses, baby.
Bread and circuses, exactly.
A guy can name every single freaking farm team that first baseman from the Mets played in, but won't know their congressman or won't know their city council board and whatnot.
I started thinking of it that way when I got a little older, because Flushing, when I grew up, today Flushing is actually the largest Asian population outside of Asia on planet Earth, and it's considered for foodies. It's considered the best place on Earth foodies to sample Asian cuisine. It's literally considered the best place on Earth because of the wide variety of really these very granular cuisines you can get there.
Is it multi-Asian, or is it just like one specific Asian?
It's multi. It's a lot of Korean and it's a lot of Chinese, but you have so many subgroups. You can literally get the cuisine of the northern Chinese Muslims there.
Yeah,
like there's a just does that.
All right. I believe that if that's going to take place in some place in New York and stuff. So you grew up in Flushing, Long Island.
But it wasn't like that then. When I was growing up, it was more like Howard Beach. It was more like Staten Island. It was very Italian.
Italian and Jewish.
We were the grandchildren of Ellis Island.
Are you Italian or Jewish?
Jewish and Irish. Jewish.
You're Jewish? Okay. And I'm Italian. I'm from Long Island, originally from Amityville, but I left and I went to Boca Raton when I was very, very young. Keaton, where are you from originally?
I could smell it on you.
Yeah. How do you think you're on the show, my mensch friend?
I grew up in Newburgh, 60 miles north of New York City, and then I lived in Brooklyn for about 7 years, and then my wife and I got married in 2015, so about 4 years in, we decided we wanted to have kids and have a family, and so we figured we'd need a yard for that, and so we moved back up here, and so I'm back in my hometown right now.
You were done being a hipster. You said enough of this 4 years, and... What part of Brooklyn?
It was a combination of things. I mean, what we were doing at the time, our lifestyle, like we both worked from home and we both cooked all the time. So we basically had, our friends used to call us like the farmers of Greenpoint. Like we had a farm basically. We never left the house. We
That's
worked at
awesome.
home. We cooked at home. So we figured the city's great. We had a rent stabilized apartment in a great neighborhood, but we're not really taking advantage of it here. So if we're not going to leave the apartment, what's the diffence where we are, right?
Exactly.
And so we
Probably
moved
cheaper
back
rent in
up.
Hudson Valley, right?
Well, or so we thought, you know.
All right. So then you guys met. You were shit posting. That's it. But what do dissidents, right? You guys are considered leftist of sorts, right? Like, I mean, I don't even know what left and right means anymore. And
Russell says that all the time.
We always say.
We say
in the States, especially. I mean, I've gotten outside of the country and gone to Latin America, and there's a big difference between left and right over there. It's a little bit different, but over here, man, shit. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of them in Brooklyn, and a lot of the leftist in America is just this creation of sorts of, like, I don't know. I mean, I see you guys taking kind of shots, right? Like I've seen you criticizing and deconstructing some of Sam Cedar's work, right? I mean, what do you guys make of this crowd and work? Well, it's propaganda. It's sheep herding. You know, there's a purpose. Sure. Whether we want to admit it or not, it's somewhat effective. I don't think it's as effective as they want it to be. Those who are controlling the strings and useful idiots like Sam Cedar aren't as effective as those puppet masters wanted them to be, but they are somewhat effective if we're breaking down their work. What are your thoughts, guys, about the American left that you see that's unfolding in front of us right now? And I'm sure it's changed in front of your very own eyes, that you guys recognize the change of maybe the shit posting you were when you started the shit posting to where we are today.
Well, it's funny. We went from shit posting and being called misogynists for our shit posting to shit posting and being careful not to get called misogynists for our shit posting to now shit posting and knowing we might get called misogynists for it, but not really caring anymore because we've just kind of washed our hands of it. I mean, I'm a leftist in the sense that I believe in free speech and free healthcare, right? I'm not a leftist when it comes to all the other social packaging that I'm going to toss to Russell because he speaks about this much more forcefully than I do. Because Russell actually went to college. Russell actually has experience dealing with a lot of these PMC, you know, quote unquote left types. So go ahead.
Yeah. Free speech and free healthcare. Are you there too as well? I mean, because I'd like to dive into that a little bit too as well. When you get the when we can circle the wagons, but I want you to be able to answer the question. Go ahead, Russell. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I think the topics that you picked today, combined with what I picked, which actually that was before I really looked at all your research on the drug war, all fits together under this package. What really struck me watching some of that, and we'll talk about it when we get to it, is you're seeing conversations on this daytime talk show Montel about the CIA dealing drugs that you would not see in any journalistic outlet today, much less a show like Montel. You're seeing Charlie Rangel and Maxine Waters, who went on to be these horribly corrupt figures, actually standing up for something, actually speaking out against the government. And it really struck me very much as the frog in the pot of boiling water in that parable. We are those people, but we so slowly lost all of that people like us notice, but a lot of people don't notice. What really struck me watching that is today, as soon as they broke that story about the CIA dealing drugs, the entire media and the entire Democratic Party would be in lockstep calling it a right-wing conspiracy theory, and they would call it right. So going back to what you're talking about, you know, you mentioned that you were on Kim Iverson, and how at this point, if you're truly left, where do you go to talk about those kinds of issues? You have to go to people who are labeled right. And they may be right on what really distinguishes the right to me, or these are the ones who are still believing in the Reagan bootstraps. They're still buying the, well, we don't want to socialize healthcare because then that's the government takeover of healthcare. They're still in that place. They're still in the Reaganomics place.
Yeah.
But when you look at a lot of the cultural stuff, they have taken up the causes and a lot of the postures, a lot of the pro-working class, theoretically, at least as a cultural pose, anti-globalism, skepticism, particularly skepticism of the intelligence agencies. It's very telling that immediately they're looking to form a new church committee, the new Republican House. And immediately Hakeem Jeffries comes out with a cute little insurrection protection label for it and vows to fight against it. So at that point, the definitions of right and left have completely broken down. And just one last point, because Keaton's talking about being called a misogynist. I think anybody whose trial by fire was through the Sanders campaign developed a deep suspicion and a deep loathing for identity politics, because we experienced firsthand the way that has been weaponized against the authentic left and used as a substitute for a meaningful political project.
Yeah. You know, coming onto the show today, I was thinking about it early this morning, like about how I was gonna drive the bus on this, right? Like, I don't have an overloaded dock today because I wanted to just talk to you guys, right? And I started off the morning show with saying, Steve, you know, my co-host from Slow News Day, and we do the morning show Anarchy in the morning. That's what this cup is there. The morning show. I started off the show today saying, Steve, and this is in my mind. I was like, where's due dissonance at, right? Let's explain blue pill, red pill, black pill, white pill again right now. And I'm like, I think these guys are definitely red pill, but I think I get a sense of them that they're getting to the point where there might even be black pill in it, because, you know, when you ask people the opinions, and I go around and I ask all my friends' opinions, I'm not going to mention who in particular, but when people say, well, you know, I don't know, sometimes I kind of feel like they could be like they're in between. They talk about a lot of electoral politics. I don't want to say they're like the vanguard, but, you know, they were kind of talking about, like, you know, the Callahan thing, right? The movie and whatnot. And it's like, yeah, but you see, I understand. I didn't watch the video, but before you got into it, I just watched a little clip. It's like, but it's not about policy to me today in Congress and everything. It's about it's not politics. It's social engineering. So when you're breaking down that movie, we're saying, okay, well, what are they trying to convey? Where are they trying to move us? You know, like the theater that's played out in front of us is kabuki theater, but the rules are real. You know what I'm saying? The rules there, like they stand, they this facade, like the rules don't apply to everybody, but those rules are in play for a reason, meaning all the rules that we live in society. Everything in front of us might be, you know, kabuki theater, but that's the question I was asking myself is, where is due dissidence? Are they in the red pill or the black pill? And then you bring the Klaus Schwab shit today. I think you're just fucking with me now, right? Like, but, you know what I'm saying? But what do you guys think about that? Because you guys do talk about electoral politics a lot. We're going to start off the show today when Misty Winston comes here, talk about pretending that the theater of Congress is real. What will be the position of the squad moving forward and stuff? Where do you guys see yourself? Because you do talk about electoral politics. Do you believe a lot in it? Is it being real or kabuki theater? Are you red pilled or you black pilled? Go ahead, Keaton.
Well, we started off the show talking and passing about sports, and I've always been interested in electoral politics in the same way that I was interested in baseball as a kid. It's a game of strategy. It's a game of numbers. And I've always been interested in it from that perspective. Now, do I believe in it as a matter of actual consequence anymore? No, not really. But, you know, it's tough to break an old habit. You know, I'm a sucker for it the way I'm a sucker for baseball, right? It's entertainment. It's a game. It's a sport. I think people like it. I like to follow it on that level. And so when it came to the midterms, yeah, I mean, just like when I was a kid, I would read the newspaper from the back page on up. You know, I'd read the batting averages, I'd read the box scores, how many hits this guy have, how many walks, home runs, RBIs. That to me is like reading a poll. It's fun. It's entertaining. I think it makes for an entertaining show. When it comes to the Well, we could take it one thing at a time, I guess. But that would be my answer on that. It's like, yes, no, I do concede that it's theater. Anis Shivani, a great writer who we have on for our election nights and our election week previews, he says the same thing. He says, yeah, this is all nonsense, but let's cover it like we're covering a horse race, right? People call it a horse race. Let's act like we're three schmucks at the track picking who's going to win. It's fun. It's entertaining. I think people enjoy it, and
it's
so we cover it
too, though. And it's important as well. It's not just entertaining; it's important. We have to,
Well, yeah, no, look, it is sure. I mean,
but we should be talking about how these decisions are made. I mean,
sure. No, look, it is.
The rules that
yeah, exactly. In all seriousness, it is of greater consequence than a baseball game,
or
right?
A horse race, yeah.
But I was not invested in any candidates or party this midterm cycle. I think that's one of the reasons we covered it well, is because we covered it with no, I hate to keep torturing this metaphor, but we had no horse in the race. You know what I mean? Like, we were just able to kind of call it as we saw it.
Yeah. Russell.
I think it's important for us to expose it as the theater it is. I think our coverage is oriented mostly in that direction. Like last night, we deconstructed AOC's tortured explanation for why they didn't force the vote. And yes, is it theater? Yes, it's important for us to do that counter programming. I feel very much, particularly when I cover mainstream media, which I've spoken about a lot. I wrote a lot of articles about that when we primarily did articles. I'm like somebody who escaped from a cult. Like, I really understand the corporate media because I was a victim of it for most of my life. Although watching again that some of the great footage you dug up on the war on drugs. See, I broke out of it right before I think it would have become a permanent mindset, because I talked to a lot of boomers and they don't understand that this is not Walter Cronkite's media anymore. Yeah. They don't get it. It happened so slowly that they came up in a world where you could trust this media. And up to a point, it always had its problems, but I would argue not like it does now.
Yeah, not today. It's straight propaganda.
Not like now. It's just straight propaganda.
Yeah.
Now, for me, I came up when you could still trust it, but it turned while I think I was still young enough to change my mind.
Yeah.
And a lot of these boomers, like, they're just, man, they're in the 60s, they're in the 70s. They're not going to turn around and go, CNN is full of shit I never noticed before. But for me, having escaped from that cult, a lot of my work where I'm talking about electoral politics, for me, that's like the people who escape Scientology who have a webpage, right? I want to tell other people who are still in the cult.
Jehovah Witnesses.
Right. This is all. Yes, I'm trying to red pill people.
Let's bring in our guest today. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't met the Dissidence boys, they're here today. Welcome them to the show. They're going to be the co-host of the show. They're going to stick with us. We got a couple subjects to talk about, but our guest for today needs no introduction. OHIO is in the house. Our good friend. She's one of the lead voices out there and advocates for Julian Assange, free Assange. Misty Winston is with us today. How you doing, Misty?
Hi, I miss you, Pasta.
I miss you too. That's
Thanks
why I'm
for having me.
On. Have you met the boys, Keaton and Russell?
I have not. It's nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you too.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
This is Misty Winston from Action from Assange. And bitch, are you doing that anymore? Not yet.
I'm kind of on hiatus. I'm going to switch over to Rumble, I think, because YouTube's messing with me. So, yeah.
Mess with everybody.
You know how it goes.
Well, listen, I wanted you to hear to talk to us about this one subject. Really, everything. It started with the whole force the vote situation. I know you know that we were there. Were you in DC with us that time for that one? You were. Okay, so we were there for First to Vote. We were there for Action for Assange at the embassy in the British embassy we went to, right?
Yep.
And then I went to Stop the Steal. I don't think you stayed for that one. at the Capitol, the ellipse in the Capitol and stuff like that. But the force to vote, we all joined forces because we all felt strongly about that AOC and the squad and the members of the Progressive Caucus should withhold their vote from Nancy Pelosi unless she agrees to put Medicare for all on the floor for a vote. Now, I don't think that any of us here, all four of us, and Keaton and Russell, you can correct me if I'm wrong, really thought that they would put Medicare for all on the floor for a vote and it would pass. I don't know what bill they would do. I would say the best bill out there was probably Jayapal's, Pramila's bill was probably one of the better ones. However, it still fucking sucks because a handover to our government for medicine, for healthcare, is just a nightmare. So I think that's something we can get into because, I know Keaton said Medicare for all and freedom of the press, right? Or freedom of speech.
Free speech, free healthcare, yeah.
And I don't know if Russell's there. And I think you're there, Misty. I believe that healthcare is a human right, but I want to see the whole system turned upside down.
Yeah.
So with all that being said, with Matt Gaetz doing what we wanted to do, pretending that the theater of Congress is real, what is the squad's role moving forward? I mean, didn't they just get embarrassed?
Can we just stop for 1 second and just rewind it all the way back and just put it out there that progressives, people who consider themselves progressives, shouldn't have even been considering voting for Nancy Pelosi in the first place? Like, everybody talks about, they should have forced the vote, and held their vote for Nancy Pelosi for Speaker of the House to get Medicare. You shouldn't have even been voting for Nancy Pelosi to start with. Like, that's a very strange thing that people just skip over. Why on earth would you vote for one of the most corrupt people we've ever had in politics? So there's that aspect of it, where the fact that AOC and Ilhan Omar... Are
you saying she's not just a stock-picking Rain Man?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. No. But yeah, it's very strange to me that anybody was ever considering voting for her in the first place. But then to completely remove the little bit of power and leverage that you have, which, to be honest, and we all know this, they don't have much or any, really, I mean, at all. But they did have in that one moment, and in a really amazing moment in time, because we had this kind of global health thing happening. And it was everybody was talking about healthcare. I mean, that was on the forefront of everybody's minds. There's this incredible amount of support for it on both sides of the aisle. Even Republicans support healthcare in large numbers. So the idea that they didn't take that opportunity to fight for something that we all desperately need, that people are dying from today. People are dying from a lack of healthcare. And then the idea that there are still people who are defending them and justifying that is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah. Keaton, 15 votes. 15 votes. I've said if the squad did that just twice withheld their votes and then went back and voted for Nancy Pelosi, they would have made an impact, really. They would have held the line. They would have had so much more support now. Couldn't they have just done that? And what's your thoughts on them just bending the knee? Because Misty talked about screw Nancy, and I put it up there in the thing, but Hakeem Jeffries is just as bad, if not worse. I mean, he doesn't have the history yet, but oh my God, this guy is scary. Go ahead, Keaton.
Well, I mean, look, how many rounds it would have taken would have been up to Nancy, not to the squad, right? The reason this went 15 rounds on the GOP side is because McCarthy called their bluff, 14 times? Yeah. You know what I mean? So however many times it takes is however many times it would have gone back then. And, obviously, there was no chance that a Medicare for All bill would have passed through the House. That was not the point. And we mentioned this on last night's show because AOC in her last little Instagram live chat sort of suggested that a lot of the, force to vote coverage was just a grift by YouTubers trying to work the algorithm to get clicks and views and things like that, as if force to vote was set up.
Defenders.
Well, that's the thing. But also, she speaks as if force the vote was some sort of setup, right, where Jimmy Dore and all these YouTubers were trying to set them up to fail. It was actually the complete opposite. I remember Jimmy Dore saying, I know I've been hard on you guys in the past, but I will let bygones be bygones and support you if you go to bat for us in this way. So force the vote was actually it was designed as an olive branch to the squad. It was not designed to pick a fight with the squad. So there's just this complete distortion of how everything went down. And of course, whether Medicare for All passed or failed, or whether that was the ask. Let's say AOC comes back and say, look, Medicare for all, unfortunately, it's a non-starter, so we can't pick that. Here's a list of other things we can try and leverage our vote for. At least then there would have been a conversation going, maybe there was a better ask. Who knows? They didn't put forward a better idea. They just said, no, there's no step 2, right? That was her big tweet that everybody started reading. It was, well, if you force the vote and it fails, then what about step 2, right? She just this like filibustering nonsense. Bottom line is, if they had gone to bat for the movement that put them there, they would have gained major credibility with the movement. And if they held out and actually got concessions, whether it was a Medicare for all vote or not, if they got some meaningful concessions from leadership in exchange for their vote, then we would think much differently of them now.
Of course.
And that was the point. The point was...
Let me say this much. They didn't even have to get any concessions. They didn't even need to get one concession. They just had to fucking do it twice to show they're not going to rubber stamp everything that comes in front of them. They just do that twice. They're like, listen, we withheld our vote twice to send the message. That's enough for them to get some credibility. They didn't even have to get anything. Go ahead.
I think they would have had to have gotten something. I mean, because if they just withheld and then said, okay, we give in, that was like what they did last fall with the Build Back Better. Right. They bluffed and said, we're not budging,
That's
and then
what
they budged.
Do with almost everything.
Look, they'd have had to get something, and they would have gotten something. That's the key point. Nancy Pelosi is not going to give up that gavel. If she has to make a concession to the progressive wing to keep the gavel, she's going to do it. She probably would have given you the floor vote on Medicare for all precisely because she knew it would fail. That's why what Misty said is exactly right, and it's what Russell said at the very top of this thing, which is, fuck force the vote, just don't vote for her.
Yeah.
Russell, go ahead and jump in there. Should the squad be embarrassed right now? Because really, to tell you the truth, I thought that AOC was desperate the way she kept on going on Instagram trying to explain and play this off and laughing. You got the pictures of Jamal Bauman like, look, we're united over here. Look at these idiots.
Oh, yeah, we covered that, too.
I'm like, you should be embarrassed for what you just didn't do. Go ahead, Russell.
I'm very fond of Kill Bill too. So whenever the squad comes up, I often quote Larry, the strip club owner. They're as useful as an asshole right here. That's what the squad are.
To us.
For their voters, for anybody. When you look at that kind of politics, oh, look at us, the Democrats, we're united. Keaton often says this, the kind of people who can support that are people with problems that politics can't solve, right? Those are people who already have health care. Those are people who are making a decent living.
True.
You have to have a lot of privilege. Yes, we might say we're covering politics as a horse race or sports, but not overall. Some of the specific electoral politics, and at the same time, we're exposing it as that. But the people who truly support the Democratic Party, and at this point, I would argue the squad, who have been absorbed by the Borg cube into the body, you have to have a lot of privilege to support that kind of politics. You have to have a lot of privilege, or you have to have a lot of naivety, or some combination of the two, because clearly this isn't going anywhere. And if you debate liberals, they're perfectly content to swallow a narrative of the promised land. We're going to enter the socialist promised land. It'll be 20 years, 30 years. We're going to have health care. They have health care. They can afford that kind of politics. It's not a politics that the people who really broke their asses for the squad can afford. And I was one of them. I will show you my card.
Yeah, he's got to bust this out.
I was a volunteer for AOC when she was some obscure bartender.
I got a picture of her. I went to her. I was in Long Island for my stepfather's funeral, and I was at the end of the island, and I took 2.5 hours of trains just to go into Queens to see. She had a what do you call those? A rally, like a little small rally, not a rally.
She was doing a lot of those then. Like if you went and volunteered for her back then, anyone could be
good pizza too.
Nobody even knew who she was. She was just this obscure.
I saw her on Jimmy.
Bartender.
I saw in Jimmy. I went to her campaign headquarters. They were doing some canvassing that day. I thought they were really prepared. They were separating people out. The Spanish-speaking people come this way. The English-speaking people, the people who speak Hindu, come over here. It's like they were really organized. They brought in the good pizza for everybody. They gave me a cool purple T-shirt. I got a picture with AOC. I was like, all right, she is there to disrupt. She's going to be a disruptor. She
Right. Oh,
thinks
yeah.
like me.
Oh, yeah.
No, don't laugh at me because we were all fooled. I was like,
Oh, no, you'll appreciate this. When I was out canvassing for her, I had a guy. He was, little did I know at the time, he was a prophet. He saw through this right away. It was a big, crazy dude, like 6'2" with this wild white hair, with a denim jacket and jeans. And I asked him to sign my petition for AOC. He goes, "Talk to me when you're ready for a real revolution, motherfucker."
Yeah.
And you know what? He was right.
A revolution isn't going to happen in electoral politics. It's absurd that anybody thinks that that's a reality that's going to happen. It's not. And AOC has always been a completely manufactured candidate. And I was cautiously optimistic about her as well. I was, I don't know if I was fooled necessarily, but I mean, I was hopeful. I mean, I think we all wanted somebody, but she was for sure like the last nail in the coffin for me for electoral politics. That's it. There's absolutely, and the whole force the vote thing. What was so amazing to me too was that at the time she was like, "Oh, well, we can't do this because we have to work for something that's more doable. We're going to fight for $15 an hour." And then the time to fight for $15 an hour came around, and not a whisper.
Right,
and
right.
people still excuse that too. She's always been a really amazing distraction. She's great at kind of funneling leftist energy or actual revolutionary energy into a completely corrupted party that will never do anything for you. I mean, they will never do anything for you.
AOCIA, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and a lot of people get bothered when I say something like, "Oh no, she's just some, maybe she's been absorbed into the machine, but she was legit to start out." No, she wasn't. Come on. She interned for Ted Kennedy. You do not get an internship with Ted Kennedy if you're just some bartender. That's not a thing that happens.
And
that is not a thing that happens.
Suspicious trips to Africa and stuff. Well, let's talk about this right now while you're here. What does healthcare
Maybe he
look
just
like?
needed a driver. Maybe he just needed. Maybe she was a good driver, and that was what she was doing when she was interning.
He's not great on that. So yeah.
What does healthcare for all look like to you guys? Because I believe healthcare is a human right, but I don't want the government controlling my healthcare after what we saw.
No.
And I think that's a big empty space right now. I talk to a lot of libertarians. That I've been kind of, with the event coming up that you have in February, you guys are on the bill, right? I saw asking for
please let me hype the shit out of that.
We will hype the shit out of that.
Angela's in the chat. I just saw her earlier. Shout out to Angela. She's helping to. I don't want to divert to
I'm
that.
still waiting
I'm
for
gonna
my
hype the shit out
invitation
of that.
from any of the groups that are there. I haven't got my invitation yet that I can to go and to
come.
speak.
You're of course invited. Are you? I don't know if you can speak. I can ask him, but yeah, you need to come.
I gotta see, but that's beside the point. I'm just trying to tease, but I've had Dave Smith on the show with Jimmy Dore, and Clint Russell, and this is an area we disagree in, and I can't necessarily. I don't have a bill that I like right now, or make pretend bill, or anything like that. But let's talk about this because this is an area where Jimmy is kind of stern about, and a lot of the people are stern about. All the progressives, when we were together, right? It was about healthcare. Healthcare is a human right. Fight. All that whole thing is there. But I mean, I think that we have to stop and rewind and go, wait a second. I don't know if governmental control of healthcare is important, but I do believe it is a human right. What does it look like to you, Misty?
That's a loaded question. I don't know that I'm smart enough to answer it. I don't want governmental takeover. I think that is an unbelievably dangerous idea. And I'm friends with a lot of Medicare for All activists, Savage Joy and others. And I appreciate the fight that they're waging. I just think that it's a slightly misguided direction, especially after the past 3 years. I don't think that anybody who has been paying attention at all wants the government anywhere near taking care of and kind of directing our healthcare system in this country. That's crazy. So I honestly, I don't know. And it's not, to be fair, healthcare is not something that I really focus on a lot. I mean, I'm pretty busy with other stuff. So it's not something that I've really done a ton of research into or read a lot of bills on. I mean, I've read the bills that have been out there, the Jayapal bill, the Sanders bill, the Kucinich bill, all of that stuff. The Kucinich bill was okay, I guess. But I also just have a soft spot for him because he's from Ohio. But yeah, I think that it's definitely going to be a very tricky situation. And honestly, I'm not sure that we can get a healthcare system that is going to be effective and one that we deserve in the current system. I just don't think it's possible. I think our system is so completely corrupted that any healthcare bill that gets passed is going to be just absurd. There's going to be a ton of pork in it. There's going to be a lot of hidden little things in it that gives power to the wrong people. So, I mean, I really think that we're putting the cart before the horse, even waging that battle until we deal with a system that's designed to kill us all.
I believe that taking on corruption is probably the first thing we need to do before we do anything else, because like you said, no matter what. But at the end of the day, Misty, and I'm going to let Russell take a shot at this first, Keaton. At the end of the day, if we spend all this money, right, through taxation, through reappropriating new money that's been created for all these other countries, for all these other wars, for all this other bullshit, that we can fund the Iron Dome in Israel, we can't set aside a couple bucks to make sure that our citizens are properly taken care of. I mean, especially the veterans. Go ahead, Russell. What does it look like to you? Because I don't know. I'm with Misty. I don't know what it looks like. I just know that where there's a will, there's a way. And I understand that, like, the new peeps I've met in the libertarian group, the conservatives I met, they hate central planning. They hate that shit. They like capitalism, not because it's just worked for them, because it hasn't worked for them completely, but they believe it equates to choices. And they believe that socialized medicine takes away that choice. Russell, what does it look like to you?
That's a really interesting question, because you don't usually get asked that question from people who actually believe in universal health care. That's generally a question from people who are libertarian, who are just opposed to that entire idea. I have always thought of it as European style socialism, where the government handles the healthcare. I will say this. We've talked about this in relation to gun control. As a fan of dystopian science fiction, I can't say I don't get where some of these libertarian gun people are coming from in terms of wanting to be armed against the government. I get it. I really do. I get why some of them would feel, well, if the citizens are not armed, if the government really becomes overwhelmingly,
I feel that way now. I feel that way, and I'm just dipping my toe into the Libertarian Party.
Right. I don't think it's I have long had a certain sympathy for that argument. It's kind of the same with this, and I only say this now. When you look up most of our dystopian science fiction, because most writers are writing from the left, are generally visions of right-wing dystopias or totalitarian dystopias. They don't deal a lot with Brave New World kind of more left-oriented dystopias. I would argue that Canada is turning into that dystopia. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty terrifying what they're doing with the euthanasia, where they literally did studies on how much money they would save if they changed the standards, and basically anyone who says they have a headache can get euthanized now.
We're at Aspen. You want to just, how about we put you out of your misery? You'll never have a headache again.
That's it. Yeah. Well, yeah, you have some people who are just poor, who can't pay the rent, who are choosing euthanasia, and all you have to do is say you're depressed and you don't feel that it's curable. Okay, next. So when you look at things like that, it does give you some grounds to be skeptical of turning over healthcare to the government, because Canada is that terrifying vision of the left gone wrong. Like, they're going to, with great compassion and a lot of sensitivity to your pronouns, give you a lethal injection. So you know what? It's something I haven't really thought about until recently. If you would ask me that question, probably even until this euthanasia thing came up in Canada, I would have said, Sweden, Norway, Denmark. That's it. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Now I can see your point. I haven't really thought about what your alternative would be, because what entity would have the ability to give everyone health care if not the government, And certainly turning it over to corporations is not a solution. So
that is the government.
How else
That's
would
the
you
government.
do it?
Yeah.
Well, that is that you're
That's the
absolutely right.
That's the same thing.
Good point.
Keaton,
Good point.
let's get Keaton in on this, because Keaton, you made some interesting points, and like, this is just right. All right, it's an eye opener. He's like, you asked this question maybe a couple months ago. I have a different answer. I had that same situation going on up until the time they pulled me off the stage from the Medicare for All march because I refused to wear a mask outside and take a test. But there was a sense of relief because the Medicare for All that they had championed for so long, pointed to these other European countries, had now been like, wait a second, I ain't playing this game no more. So how do we make it happen? Because I'm still there with, hey, if we got money for bombs, we got money to take care of people.
Right.
Keaton.
Well, I think I'll start right where Misty and Russ left off, where corporations and the government have become the same thing. So when you say in this era, given the past 3 years, okay, this sort of post-COVID era has made us very skeptical of letting the government run healthcare. When you say the government, you're really referring to this like Brundlefly type creature that includes, yes, government power, but also insurance money, pharmaceutical money, and the power that buys them within the system. So it's this blob that's governing things now, right? It's not even fair to say, oh, well, it's the government. Right. I mean, I went to pick up some forms for my kids because they're enrolling in school now. And when I went to the medical center that their office is in, there was a representative there from Pfizer trying to educate the doctors about Paxlovid. And she was pissed off because a lot of the doctors didn't want to hear from her. They didn't want to give it to their patients. They said the side effects are too many. There's rebound infection risk and stuff like that. So she's giving the she's giving the front desk lady all this shit about how she can't get anybody to see her, right? That's an example of corporate capture of the medical system, which of course influences government. I forget the name of the series, the opioid series that Michael Keaton was just in. I forget the name of that TV show. What was it?
Right. I forget the name of it.
But the same thing.
It's covering the Sackler family.
Yeah.
Right. The Sackler family, right? And look, all of these pharma companies have reps, right? But one of the characters in that show was a rep for the Sackler family. They would go and they would educate doctors about this horrible drug that they're trying to force on people. So when we talk about government power, right, we don't want government power controlling healthcare. What we think of as government power now is really this hybrid of state power and corporate power. And corporations have more influence over the healthcare system now than the actual state itself.
Right.
Now, when it comes to systems like the NHS in the UK, yes, the government pays the bills, but there are still private practices, right? Doctors' offices, like doctors are still private business people, right? Going to the doctor is not like going to a DMV, right? Which is the sort of right-wing talking point against things like that.
Yeah.
But Craig, what you're saying is absolutely valid, because the thing is, once you get in a paradigm where we in the U.S. only know the government as this entity that does all this nefarious shit. We're going to talk about the CIA and the war on drugs and things like that. When all the government does is start wars, police its own people, persecute its own people, then we have a situation where, of course, we're hesitant to hand over medical power to them. In places like Norway, right, like the UK, like just about every other civilized country on earth, people trust the government to give them health care because the government is already giving them health care, right? It's a totally different cycle that they're on from the cycle that we're on, where we only know the government as this oppressive force. Whereas in Europe, a lot of people view the government as their partner in a good life. Now, that is not to say that there cannot be abuses within those systems. Of course there can. And in a world where the government was providing health care, I would argue at that point, electoral politics would become much more important. Then you could actually get invested in it to make sure that you're putting the right people in those seats. Now, all the government does is funnel money to Ukraine, and the people who want the government to give us healthcare are people like AOC who sit on their hands and don't do anything, even when we call on them to make even the slightest move towards realizing universal healthcare as a goal. So I don't know if that fully satisfied you as an answer, because there is no way to fully satisfy you as an answer. We are in a cycle now where there is such legitimate distrust of government that, of course, it makes sense that people don't want to hand over that kind of power to them. But that's a cycle that we got ourselves in, that much of the world has not gotten themselves in. And of course, there are dystopian examples like Russell just talked about, but that's not the norm. You know, shut your eyes, pick a country on a map, and you're not going to hear horror stories like that about their medical systems.
I think I want to add to that. This is something else we have to worry about here. Well, since you've already been demonetized, I'm not going to get you in any more trouble with this.
Have you guys been demonetized by YouTube or no?
2 years demonetized on YouTube. So
yeah, so I can speak my mind without worrying I'm going to ruin.
We only use the YouTube to get people over to the other channels, the Rumble and the Rockton. So I mean,
there you go.
I don't give a shit if you
the sandwich board.
We need the
sandwich board, right? Yeah, exactly.
The show on Broadway is the advertisement for the road tour.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
You were adding on
our medical industry in this country has been so captured by the insurance companies, by the medical device manufacturers. Our academia has been captured by a radical anti-science movement that I think is being encouraged by the medical industry because it allows them to medicalize problems and make a lot of money from them that probably should not be medicalized, like gender dysphoria in children. Choosing to medicalize what the best information that we have suggests are probably gay kids for the rest of their lives that way is something that countries much more liberal than ourselves, like Sweden, have chosen not to do based on the evidence. They just shut down the clinic, Tavistock in England, based on the evidence. In this country, we have a medical industry, and it combined with increasing capture at the academic level by a group of activists whose postmodern philosophy rejects science itself inherently as a superior epistemology upon which to base treatment and recommendations. So can you really trust these people to make medical decisions? Look at what they just recommended for obese children: surgery and medication. So this is why I'm saying I might have answered this differently before, but now I'd be terrified to let those people make medical decisions. And I like the way
you did your homework, and this guy's really messing with me over here. He said Tavistock. Oh, stop it, Russell. You getting into a lot of people don't know about that name. And you did mention Tavistock just got their clinic shut down. And listen, here's the issue, right? We have a sick care system. We don't have a health care system. I think the answer is just getting closer and getting more personal with everything we put in our body, all the foods we eat. You know what I'm saying? I think if you got a patio, just get some construction buckets, some dirt and some stuff and start growing your own food. Just take, I hate to sound like individual responsibility, like some conservative, but we can't trust these people anymore. We can't trust this uber hyper capitalist society where they just want to fill you full of shit and fast food and all this crap. And the healthcare system's a sick care system. It's nothing preventative.
This is where the right wing is right. And I don't know what else to call them because they're not left, but they keep pointing out, look, when you look at this philosophy of victimhood, it's very 1984, ignorance is strength, freedom is slavery, where they're telling you that these very disempowering philosophies are empowering, that seeing yourself as a victim with no control over your life is somehow empowering. Telling people, no, you can't lose weight. You can't lose weight. That's not in your hands.
You can't.
We did a whole show about this. I hit the middle age spread. I blew up to 250 pounds. And you know what I did? I went to the freaking gym and cut my damn calories.
Absolutely.
Okay. But they're telling people, no. That has nothing to do with it.
They told you to do nothing healthy for COVID. They said just go to the doctor,
Right.
take a pill. Nothing healthy.
They never
for COVID
talked
whatsoever.
about weight. That was
Nothing.
incorrect.
Stay
You couldn't
home,
bring it up.
be scared, wait for injections. Everything will be fine.
Help is on the way.
Yeah.
So let's look at this really quick. And Misty, I'm going to let you get the first crack at this because the question is, what did Matt Gaetz accomplish that the squad didn't? Okay. Now, we also got to talk about the second part about this because it says floor votes on border and term limits, right? So once again, the biggest blind spot of the populist right is the fact that they're talking about shit at the border rather than talking about the causality of migration, which is why I'm going to be talking about the drug wars and like the next manufacturing of consent from Donald Trump. I'm going to go after the cartels, which is an excuse to go into Latin America and steal more of their resources and by blaming it on the next boogeyman, the cartels who were trained by the Chinese to make fentanyl. That's the whole Walter White story. Single member can call a vote to remove the speaker, which is great. This is great. And this is something that, it's like, hey, listen, we the people, the populist right, if they step out of line, we have a mechanism to expose McCarthy's ass and put his speakership to a vote. Rules committee appointees, of course, select committee on the DOJ abuse, and reveal government official salary. So those are some things that are cool. What did Matt Gaetz accomplish, Misty, that the squad did not?
Well, I don't think it's about any one specific concession. I think what he accomplished was showing that, they're willing to push back against leadership, which is something that does not exist in any way, shape, form, or fashion in the Democratic Party at all. They do not push back on leadership ever for any reason. They fold faster than, it's ridiculous. And then, like you said earlier, Pasta, they were bragging about it. They're taking selfies about how united they are. And I forget who it was, but somebody tweeted out something about how Nancy Pelosi made it through like 15 unchallenged votes. That's not something to brag about. Again, one of the most corrupt politicians we've ever seen. And she was able to just float through completely unchallenged through her entire career. That's not something to brag about. That's ridiculous. The fact that you are so ideologically narrow and that you are so completely controlled and you're not allowed to step out of line, you're not allowed to challenge authority, that's not something to brag about. And so I think really it's not about any one specific concession. I think it's more about just showing that, and this is not the first time. And when we saw the Tea Party do it, this happens a lot on the right. They're more willing to challenge their kind of leaders and figures of authority, which again, I don't really know that it matters, because I don't think that any of this stuff in this system makes a bit of difference. In this current system that we have, in the electoral system that we have, none of those concessions are really going to matter. The same shit's going to get passed. The same, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really matter. But optically, I think it just shows that, and it really does play to their base, because people on the right like that. They like the fact that there are people who are willing to challenge the authority and who are willing to speak out and who are willing to fight for things that, these people, that they care about.
Hey, Misty, people on the left like that shit too. We just can't get it. I love
people on the actual left. Yes. But I'm talking about inside the Democratic Party.
I know
there
what you mean.
Is absolutely no, again, Nancy Pelosi waltzed through 15 votes unchallenged for speaker. That's fucking crazy. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. Yeah. And again, the squad, to me, it was astonishing to me that anybody who considers themselves anywhere near the left would even consider voting for Nancy Pelosi. And yet here we are.
Yeah. Keaton, why don't you take the first stab at it? Because Hakeem Jeffries, those 15 votes, right? There were 15 votes. Not one time could a progressive nominate somebody else just to say, we're going to also use this opportunity to keep Hakeem Jeffries on his toes. That didn't happen. And then we'll finish up with Russell after your comment and play his lovely video, the ode to Hakeem, as I'm calling it. So.
I'm assuming you want my take on the concessions?
Yeah, like what did Matt Gaetz accomplish that the squad didn't?
Well, those are 5 of them right there in the tweet. Like I said, it's 280 character limit, so we had to be sort of concise in our wording. But
you feel probably like Misty does too, as well as I do, that it's a lot of that shit doesn't make a difference anyways, whether they had the 15 votes or not. There's some concessions there, but a lot of the same bullshit joint policies are going to be passed by this Congress no matter what, right? I mean,
yes. I mean, the only thing that I would argue has a prayer of getting to Biden's desk, and at that point it would be vetoed, would probably be the border security stuff. Republican majority might pass that through depending on what it is. Yes, the Democrats have a majority in the Senate, but one of those is still Manchin, and then you have Sinema is now a border state independent. So maybe, I mean, very, very unlikely, but
both in
possible.
Davos, by the way.
Right.
This weekend.
Oh, really? Okay.
Both Sinema and Manchin in Davos.
Okay, so
Are they?
that's possible.
Yeah,
That's possible. At that point, Biden would almost certainly veto it. But
Yeah.
okay. But what Misty said is right. I mean, what they accomplished was, first of all, some of those more structural and procedural things. And they got what Force the Vote would have gotten was they got guarantees for floor votes on the border and on term limits. So even if those fail, they will run the same sort of test that we hope to run on the left, which is getting people on record who is for this, who's not for this, and then moving forward from there, seeing if there's anybody they want to primary, things like that, right? Or even just build movements around term limits and things like that, right? But, by dragging McCarthy through 15 rounds, they have made him much more hesitant to cross them in this session because he knows how fragile his place at the top is right now. Mm-hmm. And he knows that if he treats them too badly, they might not give him 15 rounds next time. Next time, it might just be a no. Next time, there might not be any demands.
Yeah.
So I think that's the short of it.
Russell, what did he accomplish?
Well, now they have their whole conference by the balls. They are now the tail that can wag the dog in every major negotiation, in every major vote. They are going to they have shown that they will fly the plane right into the aircraft carrier. They are not going to back down. And that, if you are in a minority, that's the best hand you could possibly have. That's the hand that the squad could have had if they had any integrity. They would not be able to move in the Democratic Party without their say-so. That's what they got. Yeah. Aside from the specifics, a new church committee, which is vitally needed, and it is one of the most bizarre things of our times that's coming from the Republicans, and the Democrats are fighting against it. You can't make it up.
No, you can't make that shit up.
And getting seats on the Rules Committee, and going back to the old rule where anyone can challenge McCarthy's leadership. I mean,
absolutely,
it's a total rout for Republican leadership.
I think the squad embarrassed themselves and whatnot. And the things that are happening behind the closed doors that I think that I'm a little nervous about is I'm sure there was like this kind of deal where Gates got with McCarthy to say, hey man, let's make sure we get an investigation on China. Because the China is the GOP's Russia for what it was for the Democrats. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Misty Winston, you have a event coming up.
I don't,
guys. So it was great conversation. But tell us about this event coming up, and we'll get you on out of here. And then me and the boys will continue on with the rest of the show. Misty Winston, everybody.
Yeah, I don't have an event coming up. People's Party and the Libertarian Party have come together, which you know how much I love that. I preach that we need to come together where we can, where we agree. And specifically, when it comes to, the anti-war movement, it's I don't even know if you can say that it's on life support. It has basically been completely eradicated in this country. So to see this kind of resurgence happening and to see the People's Party and the Libertarian Party kind of come together despite their differences, we can disagree on things like the economy and healthcare and all of that stuff after we, prevent World War III, because it's none of that stuff's going to matter if, there's a nuclear winter. The People's Party and Libertarian Party have come together. They're going to have a huge rally. There's a rally at the Lincoln Memorial, and then there's going to be a march to the White House. They have amazing speakers lined up. This is all happening on February 19th. So mark your calendars, February 19th. Again, starts at the Lincoln Memorial. There's going to be a march to the White House. Amazing speakers. They have a list of 10 demands. They have a great website that you can go and visit, which I'm sure Pasta could probably put up on the screen for everybody, or throw in the chat, because I don't think I can throw things in the chat. But I can send it to you, Pasta, if you want.
Please do. Send it to me, because I can post it on up.
Yeah, that way people can go and visit. They have the 10 demands are up there if you want to check that out. They have, it's rageagainstwar.com, but if you guys just want to go there, but I'll have Pasta throw it in the chat as well. So there's 10 demands that they have listed, one of which is to free Julian Assange, which, as you guys know, means a whole lot to me. So they reached out to me just as I'm not an organizer. I am helping very much on the periphery on just the Assange stuff. So I don't want to take any credit whatsoever for the organization of this event. There are a lot of really amazing people working behind the scenes to kind of put this together. Especially right now where we're seeing this kind of Ukraine thing spiral out of control on a regular basis, and we're sending billions and billions and billions of dollars to the most corrupt country in Europe, is, mind-blowing that this is a thing that's happening and nobody seems to give a shit, and that there isn't more people in the streets. So when they approached me and just asked me to kind of help out a little bit on the Assange stuff, I was obviously on board. I will help out with any anti-war rally that ever pops up. So again, some of the demands are not one more penny for the war in Ukraine, which obviously I think that needs to end, like, I don't know, $50 billion ago. Ridiculous.
How many years ago?
Right?
Like,
Yeah.
Jesus
I mean,
Christ.
yes.
Yeah. Like 2014 was just only like
I know.
part of the whole equation.
And
you
it's
go
really
back
not
a
even
long
2014.
time.
This has really been going on for decades. But
Decades
I mean,
over there,
there's,
yes.
yeah. So the second demand is negotiate peace. I can't talk today, y'all.
It's okay.
Also stop the war inflation, which obviously that's a huge issue for everybody right now. I mean, can anybody afford eggs, y'all? I can't. Number 4 is to disband NATO, which I think is long overdue. It is probably the world's largest terrorist organization, and it needs to be ended now. Number 5 is global nuclear de-escalation. Again, something that's long overdue. This is
Scott Horton likes that one.
Yeah. And Scott Horton is going to be one of the speakers. I love Scott Horton. If you know me, you know I love Scott Horton. In my just like a little sidebar here, in my kind of quest to free Julian Assange, I over the past couple of years have made like a really concentrated effort to step outside my own political bubble. And in doing so, I have found great allies in the Libertarian Party. And so thank you to them. They've been nothing but welcoming to me, despite the fact that we do have disagreements. Yeah. But they are very supportive of me.
Angela, right? Angela.
Huh? Yeah, Angela. She was in the chat earlier.
Huh? She's the new chair of the Libertarian Party, the Mises Caucus. So smart. I mean, she like targeted us.
Yes.
Like she understood like there's a common ground with the anti-imperialist left. And that's what I consider myself.
Yes.
That's how I started this game. The anti-imperialist left. That's what drives me. That sign behind you. When, and I know people can get like frustrated, feel like they're beating their head against the wall when they're messing around with electoral politics. But, we got to use every avenue we can to amplify our voice. And if wars can be started with lies, then peace can be obtained with the truth. And that's why I do that. And that's what I love about this whole kind of like Ron Paul Jesuit style of the Mises Caucus that's there. I'm not with them on everything either, no. Misty. There's a lot of things, and I'm sure Pete and Russell will disagree with the Libertarian Party. But when it comes to war,
yes,
I'm there.
And listen, that's what I'm saying. This is such a major issue. I don't care about the other stuff. The other stuff is just completely superfluous at this point. You know what I mean? Like the healthcare stuff. Again, we can't even begin to have those conversations until we deal with the system that's designed to kill us all. So I'm willing to look for allies on this stuff that's important to me wherever. I don't care. Like if you want to free Palestine, I'm on board. We're on the same team for that issue. We can have disagreements about everything. This whole nonsense about where you have to agree with me ideologically 100% to work with me me on anything is so fucking stupid. It's childish, it's juvenile, and it's completely self-defeating. You're never going to get anything accomplished that way. So I love the fact that People's Party and the Libertarian Party are coming together on this issue. Code Pink's involved. There's speakers from across the ideological spectrum, which the event we just had in October in DC for Julian Assange, that was a huge goal of mine, was to make sure that we had speakers from across the ideological spectrum, because this isn't a partisan issue. It shouldn't be a partisan issue. We need to end the war machine. We need to end these war. It needs to happen now. I mean, this is it's not like we were talking about healthcare. People are dying today. Like, people are being absolutely brutalized all across the globe because of the United States and Western war powers. That needs to end now. And the only people who can end it are us. It's the people who are inside the belly of the beast. We're the only ones that really have any power or control. And we don't have much, and we're losing what little we do have. I mean, they're trying to take away our right to protest. They're trying to take our right to speak. They're trying to take away our right to the free press and journalism and information. So if we're going to do it, we need to do it. We need to do it right now. So the idea that we're having this event in February is huge. If you can make it to DC, please make it to DC. A couple of the other ones or the rest of the, I'll go through them quickly so you guys can continue your show, but slash the Pentagon budget, again, long overdue. Abolish the CIA and military industrial deep state, huge. Hello, abolish the CIA. The idea that is a demand that's being listed for this event is, I mean, amazing to me. Abolish war and empire, another huge one for me. Restore civil liberties. I know, Pasta, you love that. That. And then number 10, obviously the reason why I'm here is free Julian Assange. Julian Assange has done more than any other single human being on earth to expose the war machine. And so the idea that he is being persecuted, it's not just about him. They're using him as a way to send a message to all other journalists and whistleblowers across the globe, because this is the United States seeking global jurisdiction over information and journalism. That's what his prosecution means. And so I'm so happy, and I'm so thankful to the Libertarian Party and the People's Party for including this in their list of demands, and for inviting me to help them out in any small way that I can contribute to the cause, because that is that it means a lot to me. So thank you to them for putting this rally together. Again, it's on February 19th. If you can make it to DC, there's going to be, they're working on getting some buses to bus people in from some, kind of local or nearby, I'm sure like New York, Boston, some kind of more, some close locations to DC that they can get buses to. So stay tuned for that. Again, you can go to the website, which is rageagainstwar.com. You can find the list of demands. You can find a list of speakers. You can find out all different kinds of information about what's happening. You can donate. Obviously, pulling off a rally like this is unfortunately very expensive. So yeah, however you guys can help get the word out, spread the word, share the links, share the speaker list, share the demands, talk about this on social media. It's obviously going to be shadow banned. Anything anti-war always is. So whatever you can do to kind of combat that and fight back against the algorithm would be incredibly helpful. And just support this. I think, again, this is a really critical moment. And I think the idea that we're seeing these two parties come together, despite their differences, for something that is much bigger than any of us and any of our disagreements, is really encouraging to see. I think we need more of this. Pasta, you and I both talk about this all the time, where we need to come together on the things that we agree on and fight for those things. We can deal with our disagreements later, but these are, ending the war machine is so much more important than any of our where we find those kind of differences. So however you guys can help out, donate, support, share, all of those good things. And most importantly, show up if you're able to on February 19th in DC.
Misty Winston, ladies and gentlemen, she's rocking the awesome t-shirts. Stay out there supporting Julian Assange and to end this war machine. We love you. Thank you so much for
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
You got it, Misty. There she is, Misty Winston, ladies and gentlemen. Guys, I'm here with the due dissidence. I call due diligence. Welcome.
The idea.
We get that all the time.
Due dissidence. Sorry. What we're going to do is really quick. As we know, I wanted to play this from Russell because this caught my eye. I thought it was cool. Hakeem Jeffries did this whole friggin' little stunt speech, and you heard people in the mainstream media, oh my God, did you see what Hakeem did? It was masterful. I didn't realize until he got to H what he was doing.
Well, this is why he's what I know we're probably running short, but this is why he's worse than Nancy Pelosi, because Pelosi is a senile old bat by this point. this guy can really deliver shit lib theater. Like, this guy can really communicate it. This guy really knows how to do the banal, meaningless, liberal, platitudinous bullshit in a way that his base is really going to respond to. Or as Nancy Pelosi, yes, the blue MAGA loyalists love her, but when she takes the microphone, they were kind of like, "Oh, all right, Nancy, Jesus all right, come on, right?" Yeah. Hakeem, no, he's a star. You know,
he is
exactly. Yeah.
And he's against everything the squad stands for.
Oh yeah, no,
they voted for him unanimously,
and they voted
trash.
For him. Yep.
Utter
he's
trash.
Pro APEC, like, you know what I'm saying. So let's play little Russell's little minute. I called it the ode to Hakeem Jeffries. Take a look. This is Russell. Do dissidence, guys. Convo Couch is here. Thank you. Do us a favor. Hit the like button. Hit the share button. We'll be right back in about a minute in chains. Here's Russell.
House Democrats will always put Azov over armistice, blue no matter who over Bernie or bust, corporate profits over child tax credits, defense contractors over diplomacy, effete snobbery over effective outreach, free trade over free speech, George W. Bush over George Santos, hormones over housing, insider trading over insurrection, Jeffrey Epstein cover-ups over justice, Kente Cloth over Kashama Sawan, love Trump's hate over liberty, equality, and fraternity, means testing over Medicare for all, Northrop Grumman over national sovereignty, the Obama cult over the Orange Man cult, parliamentarians over promised policies, queer theory over quality education, race hustling over reparations, Senate filibuster over sick leave, Tumblr over Twitter, Union Carbide over unions, virtue signaling over viable legislation, Wall Street over workers, X Factor over X Games, Yo Roth over Yay, Zelensky over Zin.
N was my favorite. Northrop Grumman over national sovereignty, because national sovereignty is my shit. That's why I'm into elections and stuff. But what inspired that, Russell, other than wanting to throw up when you heard Hakeem Jeffries?
That was actually my esteemed colleague's idea, and then we collaborated on the alphabet.
Nice.
Yeah, we wrote it together and we recorded each a version of it. But my laptop is broken, so I was using an external monitor, and my eye line was just off, so I couldn't really recite it well, because when I was looking at the camera, it looked, because of the way my setup was just sort of rigged, my eye line was off. So I said, Russell, you did fine. We're just going to use your take.
There you go.
And so that's what we did.
It was a good job. I liked it a lot, and it's kind of what it inspired me to reach out to you guys today. I'm like, let's get these guys on while they're doing this. They're hot right now.
It was a calling card.
We're both coming out of a theater background, and this year,
I got that too. So.
We really want to create a kind of modern day Smothers Brothers on YouTube. We really want to start doing more sketch, more song parody.
I hear you. It's entertaining.
I pitched Russell earlier today a Joe's Garage parody for the classified documents based on the great Frank Zappa concept album, the Frank Zappa song Joe's Garage. But Russell's not a Zappa fan, so he didn't quite get what I was talking about. So I gotta make sure you listen to the tune.
I vaguely get what you're talking about. Vaguely, you know what I'm saying, but I have a theater background myself too. So I mean,
oh, you do?
Yeah. Well, I was in high school. I stopped playing sports to concentrate in theater. I was a thespian, you know what I'm saying? That kind of thing.
Right. You're the most interesting person ever born on Long Island.
Who's that?
Most Long Island people are not as interesting as you.
Well, I moved to South
Florida. Most Long Island people who look like you and talk like you are like, gotta back the blue, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. I'm used to hearing that accent. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance between hearing your accent and hearing what you say.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh. How much time do you guys have? Because I was planning on having a 90-minute show, which is 5 minutes away. And I was like, well, we'll spend 30 minutes on each topping. Well, we spent 90 minutes on the whole freaking first topping.
We could stay for I don't know, do we have another half hour? I do have to go. The laptop repair place did text me. I do have to pick that up today before they leak my Ukrainian hooker sex tapes to the Chinese press. Yeah,
I know a guy who got in trouble for that, so you want to wipe that shit out.
But I could stay another half hour or so. We can knock these out.
A half hour. We can do at least one more subject because
Yeah.
All right, let me just jump right into this.
Russell, that works, right?
Does that work for you, Russ?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
If you got to go at any time, just go ahead, right ahead, and you know what I'm saying. But let me make sure. Did I pull it up? All right, let me pull it up first, really quickly. I wanted to talk about this this drug war and whatnot, what's going on, because oh geez, let me play you guys the video. I go and I speak at these election integrity events, right? And the election integrity group I speak at right now, they're called the American Project. I don't even know if I got the right video. Hold on, let's see. No, I did not. I'm sorry, guys. Give me 2 seconds. I got the wrong video. But I speak at this thing called the American Project, which is Patrick Burns' group about election integrity, getting people from all different sides of the aisles, talking about, how do we fix our elections? I don't know if you guys know this, but I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I went there. This is what me and Misty were talking about.
So you're pre-sentencing right now?
I'm pre-sentencing, yeah. I want to get the right one. Guys,
selling hot dogs?
I was there because it was a Stop the Steal. Right. I think this is the one. Okay. So I got this here. Let me bring this in there. When I was speaking at this one event, and it was in West Palm Beach, and I was on the solutions panel, because I'm an international election observer. I can go over there and I can say, oh, I've witnessed elections that have efficiency, transparency, and results in one day. A lot of the things that a lot of the Republicans want, which is 1 day of voting, election day, showing up at your designated spot with ID, public counting in precinct. These are all things that a lot of conservatives want now, since they got cheated. They weren't there with us in 2016 when Bernie got cheated and we went through that whole situation. So I speak at these events. Now, before the solutions panel was coming on, they had this X, and this is red meat for the conservatives, because the conservatives, they like to have their boogeyman, right? And I don't know if you guys remember that when Donald Trump started off, campaigning, and we really caught fire, it was the whole border wall. I'm building a wall. It's like, okay, do you guys even recognize why we have problems at the wall? You know what I'm saying? And that's something I think that both parties kind of play into. They never really talk about the causality of why there's so much migration coming to the border, because then they would have to honestly admit that it's our foreign policy, that it's a fascistic, meaning fascism, meaning corporatism, allowing these corporations to go down and rape these countries blind. Resource extraction while throwing the monetary system on there and forcing a working class, a poor working class, that has their countries turned upside down by American foreign policy. And that's why we have problems at the border. So any politician talking about the border, in my mind, is just a distraction. They don't want to talk about the real problems. People ask me about what my issues are with Tulsi Gabbard. It's this issue right here. She's talking about the border. She's abandoned her post as far as I'm concerned, because she's not talking about what's going on in Latin America.
Right.
Now, before I went to talk at the solutions panel, they had this ex-ICE employee who was going to talk to Donald Trump about classifying the cartels as a foreign combatant, an enemy. Therefore, they can have a right to do whatever they want. So when about 2 weeks ago, when Donald Trump came out with this speech about the cartels, I just about crap my pants, because I see this as not taking on the boogeyman of the cartels, because as we're going to show, the cartels are run by the CIA. They've been down there running this shit for a long time. That's what the whole Freeway Rick Ross is, and the Gary Webb story we're talking about. They're running shit. It's just an excuse, more of an excuse, along with the fear of the communist socialists in these countries that have this thing, along with these cartels. The United States empire, if Donald Trump comes back into play, can now go into Latin America whenever they want and just blame it on the cartels. Take a look at this video and let me know what you guys think, because this, to me, when I heard this guy talk about this at the solutions panel, it scared the crap out of me. As soon as he got off stage, I was walking on stage and I questioned him. I said, how much of the cartels are run by the CIA? And he was like, well, that's a problem. I said, you're not answering my question. How much of a problem? Take a look at this video. Let me know what you guys think.
Today, I'm announcing my plan to shatter the left-wing censorship regime and to reclaim the right to free speech for all Americans. The most important reform needed right now is a total ban on Biden using taxpayer dollars to free illegal aliens and
Wrong video. wrong video. I gotta go find it. Now all of a sudden I'm having a hard
That one
time.
was so rousing.
Wrong video. Guys, give me your thoughts really quick while I go find this video. Give me your thoughts on what you think. How much control? I don't know if you guys have done any research, but how much power do you think the CIA has over the cartels or vice versa? Russell, why don't you go first on this one?
It's hard to say because there hasn't been any meaningful coverage of this subject in decades. That was some of what we were talking about before. Some of the source material you sent over. It really brings home how much we're living in a censorship regime today. I feel like somebody who's living in a totalitarian society watching some video from before the totalitarian revolution, watching that Montel episode. Like, wow, yeah. They used to talk about things like the CIA running drugs into inner city neighborhoods on shows like Montel. Here's Dan Rather talking about the CIA running drugs on CBS. That's unimaginable today. So currently, I don't see a lot of reporting on it now. It's hard to say. It's difficult to imagine that if they can afford to just pour billions of dollars into Ukraine to fight Russia, that they really could not wipe out these drug cartels very quickly if they wanted to. But that's speculative.
Keaton?
Yeah, I would second just about all of that. The thing that struck me in the videos that you sent us over was not just the Montel segment, which Russ just mentioned, and how you would never see a segment like that on daytime TV now, right?
A renegade agent
right,
going on there and talking about how this goes all the way back to Vietnam and Cambodia, how we were running drugs out of there too and allying with heroin producers. You would never see that on a show like that.
Yeah, sure thing. But the other thing that struck me is just the tone of those hearings. You know, you sent us over a couple of clips with hearings where Maxine Waters spoke. Just the tone in the room. Yeah. Just the hemming and the hawing and the screaming. There was such energy around this because people felt like they were learning something they didn't know before, and that what they were learning, and here's the key thing, what they were learning would be of consequence, right? Would actually cause some sort of major dynamic shift in the way these agencies were run, in public attitudes towards them, perhaps in their existence at all, right? Who knew, right? We're learning this new thing, and we're going to act on this new knowledge. Wherever we are now, however many years later, we have not acted on any of that knowledge. And so now I think people are just very desensitized to stories like this, right? Yeah. You even talk about 9/11, right? You even start, talking about, conspiracy theories about 9/11 or, agencies' involvements in suppressing certain information about it, right? A lot of people understand at this point, I'm not saying it's a 9/11 truth or country, but a lot of people at this point understand that there's far, far, far more to the events of that day than what the official story was that day. And yet it has not produced any sort of movement to reform any of these agencies or to upend any of these systems.
Yeah.
There are many reasons why that is. To a large extent, I think the population has been bought off with gadgets and toys. Notice rich people have nicer houses than we do. They have nicer cars than we do. They take much nicer vacations than we do, but they have the same phones as we do. The average person who spends hours a day on their phone has the same quality phone as the movie star who's using the phone for an Instagram video, right? And if we're spending hours a day like this on the same cool gadget that whatever Ariana Grande is posting her Instagram shit from, then we've been bought off in that sense, right? I don't want to get, because I could talk for an hour on this and we don't have that much time. But so there are many reasons for this, but I think the major shift is that back then there was the idea that these investigations were going to lead to big things happening. And now there just isn't. So now no one cares anymore. So now there's not even a curiosity about these things anymore.
It's kind of interesting because it's like, I think earlier in the show, Russell mentioned Charles Rangel and Maxine Waters at one point, how they were standing up and screaming. And, I think a lot of this was highlighted from Montel Williams. And the whole question was the drugs put on the streets to destroy the black community? Was it one of those things? And through the Montel Williams episode, we're not going to be able to see the whole thing. But towards the end, they mentioned that, like, look, this is not just a black thing. There's also, this happens to white people, Puerto Rican, Latin people, whatnot. But the group that I think that's not protected at all, not talked about it at all, are those that are in Latin America. And when I've gone down there to see these people, to stand with Sandinistas, my first stamp on my first passport is Nicaragua. And to go down and see these people and see what they went through, the Civil War, how guns were thrown into the opposition's hands for a bloody Civil War, their lives are not protected and talked about enough. So I found the Donald Trump tweet. I want you guys to see this here, because to me, this is one of the biggest red lights out there right now. I see a lot of shit going on in Brazil that's scary, that I'm trying to reverse engineer and figure out what's going on over there. Obviously, I went down to the election. I made a lot of friends in the conservative movement when it came to me speaking out about the 2020 election and my feelings there. But now I'm going against their narrative and they're shutting me out. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not pointing that out that I'm being pissed off and I feel personally swayed. I feel like they're not allowing the message to get out. They're not allowing the conversations to get out there. So when I see a situation like this, I keep ringing the bell and the alarm going, hey, man, the cartels are run by the CIA. The cartels are run by the CIA because even though it was on back on TV and it's not on TV today, like it is in Montel Williams, and that's a great point you put out there, Russell, the fact that this shit would not even be allowed on TV nowadays at all.
No way.
But they never stopped. They never showed any evidence of them stopping. And we still see leaders like Pedro Castillo, who in Peru now, who's been legislatively couped, Western back, talking about the DEA, talking about the CIA. There's been no evidence of them ever leaving. So let's take a look at Donald Trump's video real quick. Now, this scares the shit out of me. Let me know what you guys think. Hit the like button, hit the share button. I'm here with you, Dissidents, everybody. Convo Couch. Thank you.
Our country is being poisoned from within by the drugs and by all of the other crime that's taking place. The drug cartels are waging war in America, and it's now time for America to wage war on the cartels. We will show no mercy on the cartels. Every day, drug traffickers are using the waters of our region to ship their lethal poisons to America, killing so many of our people and ruining families. In addition to restoring strong border security, I will deploy all necessary military assets, including the U.S. Navy, to impose the full naval embargo on the cartels. We will guarantee that the waters of the Western Hemisphere are not used to traffic illicit drugs to our country. Furthermore, I will order the Department of Defense to make appropriate use of special forces, cyber warfare, and other overt and covert actions to inflict maximum damage on cartel leadership, infrastructure, and operations. I will designate the major cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. We will sever their access to global financial systems. I will also work to forge an unprecedented partnership with neighboring governments in our region. Either we will get the full cooperation of other governments to stop this menace, or we will expose every bribe, every kickback, every payoff, and every bit of corruption that is allowing the cartels to preserve their brutal reign. And it is indeed brutal. Finally, as I have said before, I will ask Congress to pass legislation ensuring that drug smugglers and human traffickers receive the death penalty. The drug cartels and their allies in the Biden administration have the blood of countless millions on their hands. Millions and millions of families and people are being destroyed. When I'm back in the White House, the drug kingpins and vicious traffickers will never sleep soundly again. We did it once, and we did it better than anybody else. There's never been a better border than we had just 2 years ago. It was strong, it was powerful, and it was respected all over the world. And now we're laughed at all over the world. And we're not going to let that happen much longer. We have to take over. We have to be tough. We have to be smart. We have to be fair. But if we don't do something immediately, our country is gone.
Our beautiful, beautiful border. Nobody's ever done it beautiful, and Biden's in lockstep with these drug dealers in the Biden administration. There were so many things there that were just so scary. The thing is, first of all, he's providing shade for the drug companies. Number one, okay? The fentanyl issue we have right now is an issue that is homegrown because it's the way the doctors and the Sackler family, which we mentioned earlier, pretty much gave out this poison to our kids on an enormous basis. I'm just handing it out like Pez candy, Adderall, opioids, all this stuff, right? I think 80% of people who are taking opioids nowadays that die from opioids abuse, probably something like that, the first time they were ever given an opioid could have been from their doctor. I mean, this is him providing shade once again for the pharmaceutical companies and putting it on the bad guys, the cartels. Secondly, making them an enemy combatant means you can go into those countries at any time you want, right? Navy SEALs, Green Berets, the whole 9 frigging yards. And I've said this before. Once they've exhausted themselves, the empire in Ukraine and that region, they're going to start putting their attention back on their own hemisphere and Latin America. And everything I see from the bullshit orange revolution attempts trying to be started from the Steve Bannon crowd, we're making them Brazil all about, communist and Marxist and all this shit, to the cartels and the drug dealers. Buckle up. Your thoughts, Russell. Why don't you go first on what you just saw there? And, I know you've already given your opinion, but what do you think about Trump saying all that stuff right over there?
Well, I thought the most interesting thing in the context of what we're discussing is that he's really framing it as an attack on the deep state. He's saying he's going to expose exactly what we're talking about here, that the CIA is really running these drugs and the politicians are in on it. So that was
you got that out of that thing right there, that he was going to expose the deep state there.
Well, that's what he's claiming. That's what he's claiming. He was talking.
Yeah, he said,
about,
I'm going to, every bribe, right?
But he said the Biden administration, he's going to put it on the Democrats and the leftists and the Marxists and the communists, not the CIA and the deep state.
To him, that's one and the same. And these days, there's some justification for that. That's why the Democrats are fighting so hard against the church committee. So with Donald Trump, we know from experience, he likes to talk these kinds of populist themes. But I guess we're not going to get into Davos, so I'll get into a little bit of this here. I think a lot of the left, not this left, like I think the actual left is a little more aware. But the only people really talking this language are what are being labeled the right. These are the people who are talking Brexit. You cannot make sense of Brexit if you don't understand the conversation around figures like Klaus Schwab and his globalist vision of a future where nobody owns anything. A lot of the people coming out to vote Brexit, and there's what I was saying about the Montel sequence. Immediately, they would just label those people right-wing racists, right? If they came out and said the CIA is doing this. That's what they did to anyone who voted Brexit. That's what they did to anyone who's voting Donald Trump. As Matt Taibbi describes in Hate Inc., we're in siloed media environments where there are two different conversations going on. So Trump there, I think what he's saying is very clear. If you're getting a certain media diet, that he is talking about the conspiracy. He's talking about the deep state. He's talking about what you're talking about. I believe. I think that's how that reads to his target audience. Because you know what? They're the ones talking about Davos this week. The people who tend to like Trump, who are in that media sphere, they're the ones talking about how everyone's coming in with their private planes this week, and it's 20% more emissions than last year. They're the ones talking about how they are trying to overwhelm the prerogatives of national governments with their corporate globalism. They're having that conversation. So I think for his audience, that's very clearly an attack on the deep state.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a version of QAnon, right? And I don't mean that as an insult, but you know, it's sort of perhaps a more reality-based version of that, right? Rather than Donald Trump going after this cabal of child molesters, he's going after the CIA who's funding, you know, these cartels. I think that is how that reads. I think that's how this sort of like
that way too. Oh God,
what's that?
I don't see that. I see a pivot. I don't think that Donald Trump or his group would ever get rid of the CIA or the FBI. I don't think they want to abolish it. I think they just want new management there. You know what I'm saying? So I think he's trying to keep the CIA out of it while blaming everything on the cartels or an enemy combatant because he understands that his followers really
look, I mean,
that shit.
That's true. But look, he's always done this kind of dance, right? I talked to an anti-war activist on our show last week where I said it seemed like Donald Trump was the only guy in Washington, D.C. over the past few decades who did not want this war in Ukraine. And she pushed back because she mentioned he armed the Ukrainian rebels also, right? I mean, he was tough on Putin in his own way also, and that is true. But at the same time, even liberal media figures have said that this very likely would not have happened under Donald Trump because Donald Trump would have given Putin enough of what he wanted to keep this from boiling over. And I do agree with that. Now, Trump, and this is sort of a piece, right? Because there is this sort of disconnect between his rhetoric and what he does, but New York real estate guy that he is, he makes it work. He finds a balance. Right? He keeps both parties just happy enough and just frustrated enough to do his thing. Now, sometimes you run out of rope, right? I mean, it doesn't work that way forever. But that's his thing, man. This is the dance he does. There's no doubt that was meant. And this is why, by the way, as pathetic as his 2024 campaign rollout has been, this is why he still has support, because to that diehard MAGA base who takes away from that what Russell and I have just said, they accept no substitutes because there are no substitutes. Right. You're not going to see Ron DeSantis go up there and put a video out like that. That's not going to happen, right? And so there is, I mean, it is the Steve Bannon thing. You notice in 2016 a very, very sharp turn that his speeches took when he hired Bannon, and I think it was mid-August of that year, talking about themes of globalism, deep state. I mean, Russ is you know, you have to give it up. He's good. We're not going to have time for the third segment, so he ties the third segment into this one. Davos, right? I mean, the ethos of Davos, and here, I'll just read from a little clip, if you'll indulge me for 1 second here, because there was an article that put it really, really well. I will find it right now. I'm sorry. He talks about at Davos, they spread a philosophy of globalism, insulating policy from democracy by transferring the decision-making process from the national and international level, where citizens theoretically are able to exercise some degree of influence over policy, to the supranational level by placing a self-selected group of unelected, unaccountable stakeholders, mainly corporations, in charge of global decisions concerning everything from energy, food, media, public health. That ethos of globalism is what Trump ran against in 2016. And you still see shades of that in snippets like that.
Okay.
Right?
Don't you see him moving people in a dishonest direction? You know what I'm saying?
He's like the line in Scarface.
I tell the truth even when I lie.
That's Trump.
I mean, there's always a little truth in everything. I mean, I think I see a lot of these people, especially the Bannon ethosphere or whatever you want to fucking call it.
No, look, I mean, Craig, big picture, you're right. Is Trump going to abolish the CIA? No. So, like, big picture, yes, I understand what you're saying. But that's not to say he doesn't message to people in that way. And this is why the deep state hates him so much, because they get a lot of bad press, right?
Do you think
this is what undermines
him,
people's faith in them.
Together with them. Do you think there could be any chance that they're all working together on this? You know what I'm saying? That this is the theater to get us to move in a certain direction? It is a form of sheep herding.
No,
you guys think that?
I do believe the CIA despises Donald Trump, and they would do anything to stop him from becoming president again.
Why not kill him?
Well, that's what I meant by
I've
anything.
said that.
That's what that dog head turn was there.
I've been predicting this. This is just going to get. I'm going to take more and more credit. I've been predicting for 10 years that Ron DeSantis will be president. No, I called that about 6 months ago, and part of my logic when I laid that out, that Ron DeSantis will be the next president, the Democrats forget about it. That's not even worth considering as far as I'm concerned. So why will it be DeSantis instead of Trump? Yeah, that's my final trump card, so to speak. If it comes down to it, the CIA will whack him before they will let him be the president again. So
I don't know about
slice it, Ron DeSantis is the next president.
Well, look, those hearings, like this goes back to what I was saying earlier, those hearings where we heard the energy in the room, the anger in the room, the curiosity in the room. Are we going to find out that the CIA was running drug running operations to fund the Contras, right? And if so, what's going to happen?
The fact that the CIA
what Trump
director
represents,
even felt like he had to talk to them.
Well,
that would never even happen today.
Yeah.
Of course not. But
go
now,
to South Central and address the controversy.
No, but let's think about this now. This new church committee is forming now, right? There's energy in that direction now. You might get a scene somewhat resembling that in a few months once these hearings start. That is, you could chalk that up to Trump. You could chalk that up to Trump renewing skepticism in these
Let me
agencies.
give you guys my theory. I hear what you're saying, but let me give you my theories real quick.
And they hate that. They don't want that. It's not that he's going to abolish them, but they don't like that.
That's what we see. That's what they want us to see. Because here's the thing that I think that we have to be aware of now. Now that Donald Trump has looked like the lone wolf, he's gathered a lot of support for these things. You know, it's just like when you see some of these other guys from this bed and ecosphere, when they talk about things like COVID and they get people to go aboard. Now people buy more into the whole team mentality. So when you got them invested in you and invested in your team the way Donald Trump has got them invested, as he appears to be taking on the deep state, then he can move people in a certain direction they weren't necessarily going to be wanting to be moved in, like a war with China, right?
I would buy that if the Obama years weren't what they were. If the Obama years weren't just this period of nothingness and conformity, right? And just like looking at our phones, really not paying much attention. Like if what passes for the left in mainstream circles, I don't want to get into a big semantical thing here, but if the left had taken the ball and run with it after the Bush years and say, okay, we're going to undo every disaster that George Bush inflicted upon not only this country, but the world. We're going to undo that. We're going to roll that back. We're going to dismantle it. And we're going to be very persistent in our efforts to do that. Then there would have been this energy there. And you could say, well, then they needed Donald Trump to sort of put the brakes on that and sort of herd people back into the fold. But that wasn't the case. The Obama years were nothing. That's what they want. They want us not paying attention, glued to our smartphones, enjoying the luxuries of that come with living in an empire. And they just want us off their back. And even though, while I agree with you, like I said, Craig, from 30,000 feet, you're right. Is he an existential threat to these agencies in that way? No. But he's giving them bad press, and he's starting shit up with them, and he's creating a new consciousness against them that wasn't there during the Obama years. And it wouldn't be there during the Biden years if Biden were able to have his way. But I think starting with this new church committee now, we might see some of that energy start brewing again. And like I said before, They don't like that. I think they think they can put us to sleep. They think they can impose their will on us through censorship, through all sorts of, woke control of institutions and things like that. They think they can just bully us into submission, and I think that's their plan. I don't think they need a decoy, right?
I think
you know what I mean?
I think that he's put people in corners more than ever before. Trump derangement syndrome is really a thing, and at the end of the day, the conservatives, the populist right, they blame everything on communism, which is not about blaming government; it's about blaming your neighbor. Like these communists over here,
Sure thing.
They're more divisive than ever before. He pushed a vaccine and said it was a beautiful vaccine, Operation Warp Speed. The CARES Act was signed by Donald Trump. More money got kicked up to the highest.
Of course, no argument there.
The war machine is still, the budget grows every single year. We need to have a strong military. And at the end of the day, the China message is more evident than it's ever been. So even though it appears that he might be a lone wolf pushing against the grain, I don't see that. I see people being
he's pushing against their grain. He's pushing against their grain.
But at the end of the day, I think they're moving us where they want to move us. The next,
at the end of the day, they beat him. Don't forget,
they're winning.
At the end of the day, they won.
I don't think so. I think he's just lived to fight another day, and he's going to come back. I mean, he's still alive, right?
I think what Russell said,
he took them by surprise last time.
Yeah,
I don't know about that, guys. I don't know. I'm not there with you and stuff like that, but I think it's a great way to end the show. I know we didn't get to anything. We're almost at 2 hours. I've held you guys long enough. You got to get to the computer store. Do Dissidence. Why don't you tell everybody out there where we can find you? We'll continue this conversation. We'll bring you back on too as well. And of course, if you got a warm spot for me over there on your couch, I'd love to join you guys. I think you guys are doing some great work, and this has been a great, intriguing conversation today. Russell and Keaton from Do Dissidence. Let us know where they can find you.
All right. Well, first of all, Craig, thank you so much. It was great to meet you again. And this was really a lot of fun. And yes, we would love to have you on. Go to Do Dissidence on YouTube. That's the best way to find us right now. Just go to that YouTube search bar, Do Dissidence, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also go to dodissidence.substack.com, where you can sign up for free, or you can chip in a few bucks a month to help us out. You can also go to our website, dodissidence.com. We have a link tree with all the links and everything, but the main things are obviously YouTube and Substack. Substack is great because you keep in touch with us. We write articles, we drop audio shows, and we drop videos, and you get everything when you go there. And we also have an audio podcast, so you can find us on any podcast player.
Russell, let's put some hustle.
Thank you very much for having us on. It's been a great conversation. It's nice to find some like-minded people. We will bring you over to our MAGA point of view. I'm kidding. We're not MAGA people.
Neither am I. But I get accused. Listen, here's the thing. We're not MAGA people, but no matter what, we are labeled as MAGA sympathizers.
Oh, yeah.
MAGA sympathizers, just because we're willing to talk to conservatives and people who think differently than us. So,
well, we call that coddling on our station. That's that's one of the things that made our channel take off to the extent that it has. Is we took issue with the Vanguard accusing Aaron Mate of coddling the right wing.
I saw that.
That's a whole thing.
That's just But listen, there's
so put us on the map, man. That was our Highway 61.
But I you know what? I got to be honest with you right now. I feel like I've let my guard down a little bit because I've been really cozy and cool with a lot of the populist right. But at the end of the day, seeing them blame communism for everything, not that I'm endorsing communism, I'm endorsing the acceptance of communism. Angela McArdle, who has been spoken about on the show, the Libertarian Chair, said on my show, being mad at another country for being communist is like being mad at your neighbor for being gay. It makes no sense. And these countries, whatever system they want to get involved with, they should be okay with. The West shouldn't be messing around, and seeing all these conservatives or these populist right people lose their shit over Brazil when they don't understand the history. They haven't done any research whatsoever. It's like the shit libs haven't looked at 2014 to see what happened in Ukraine on the Maidan to understand what's going on today. Same thing with the populist right in Brazil with Lula not understanding how the State Department worked with their judicial system to jail the guy and then had to let them out because they got caught with their hands in the cookie jar. For them not to see that, the blind spot, I feel like I've been duped a little bit.
I would say more. I'm not going to go so far as to say more, although I think it might be more. The populist right is more caught up in culture war issues, I find, than those kinds of issues. I see them decrying wokeness more than I see them
They think that Marxism down in Latin America, Russell, is all that kind of culture war, and it's not. That Marxism down
some
in
of
Latin
them,
America
some of them, more of them are concerned about their teacher trying to trans their son because they like to play with dolls. I hear them talk about that more than I hear them talk about communism. But what I will say is because the left or the shitlibs, the liberals, have become so intolerant, they just keep pushing people who would be, even with some disagreement in their camp, like Tulsi Gabbard, like Elon Musk's. You have these very high-profile defectors, Matt Taibbi, who they're labeling a right-winger. You know, I mean, he's right-wing, like Mao Zedong is right-wing. They're pushing all of these people to have to take refuge within the right, at the very least, the right media sphere. If you look at who Matt Taibbi has been able to talk to about the Twitter files, it's people like us and Fox News.
Well,
they're not asking him to talk on CNN.
I like people like us.
Yeah, people like us are the best.
We're the best.
I'm just saying a lot of people are being pushed to have to, at the very least, go to the right to find a platform. You know, Glenn Greenwald always gets smeared with that, right? Oh, why is he going on Fox? You see him getting invited anywhere else? I mean, within the corporate media?
No. Only Tucker. Do dissidents, ladies and gentlemen. Keaton, Russell, thank you guys so much for joining us, being my co-host today, guys. You are amazing. I look forward to having more conversations with you down the road, and we'll see you soon, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate it.
Craig.
Peace out, guys. Do dissidents, boys, in the house. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. That is awesome. Let me get caught up really quick. I have some super rays. ARAM for the news, discussion, truth, and context as much as possible. When it matters, independent journalism is where it's at. Convo Couch rocks. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ARAM and Amber King. Seattle for Assange is also having a coalition event on 2/19, which is February 19th, at the Seattle Center under the Space Needle. 3 p.m. Join us. Hashtag West Coast, hashtag End the Damn Wars, and more, and parties and peace and groups and more. Thank you so much, Amber King. That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We didn't even get to the doc for half the shit we wanted anyways. Crazy. But hopefully I can join those guys again. As you know, I told you in the beginning of the show, Fiorella is on assignment. She is in the Donbass. She'll be back with us next Wednesday. I'll have a nice panel put together. I got some anarchist, libertarian, green kind of coalition. We'll get their advice on what we think, on what they think we should do moving forward when it comes to our social lives, our political lives, and whatnot. That's it for me, guys. For Pasta Jardula, I'm also on the ones and twos. We love you. Thank you for joining us. Combo out. We'll see you Wednesday, guys. Peace out.